I'm Governor Larry Hogan, and I'm proud to support the efforts of the Fair Hill Organizing Committee to host the Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill. Maryland is incredibly proud of its historic equine industry, and the stage is set for a new era of eventing to begin right here in Cecil County. Please enjoy this virtual event as a sneak preview of what you can expect next fall at the new Fair Hill Special Event Zone. See you next year.
I turned up today for the first time at the Fair Hill Special Event Zone and I was blown away.
I just can't say enough about how impressed we are and how excited we are to finally get horses and riders running across this beautiful new venue.
On the first day is the dressage, which is sort of the gymnastic floor routine, where the judges mark points of softness and relaxation.
Where the precision and the rhythm really matters to be able to set the bar for your score in the first phase.
It's just awesome to have an event of this caliber in this region.
Hello, my name is Ben King. I'm the founder and CEO of Quarry View Building Group. This year we are proud to be a 4-star sponsor at the Maryland 5-Star event, and we've also had the opportunity to design the Dressage Judges booth. So we're very excited to be a part of this. We're based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we're a premier design build construction company specializing in timber frame structures, custom homes, custom equestrian spaces, barns, riding arenas.
Hi, I'm Paul, the lead designer at Quarry View. As Ben mentioned, we do many different types of projects, so it's important that we listen well to our clients and ask good questions. We use a 3D modeling software to help our clients visualize their projects. This software allows us to create drawings and renderings that are full color and quite realistic. We recently completed a project at River Mountain Retreat in Everett, PA. The project included some modern cabins with enclosed bunks for sleeping accommodations. We also recently completed a project in Blue Ridge, Virginia. The project was a horse barn with an apartment above it. The apartment had an authentic timber frame structure made out of Douglas fir. Our guys are really good at taking pictures of their handiwork. They love showing that off. And so we took some of their pictures and we put that next to my renderings. The images on the bottom are the renderings that I created, and the images on top are the pictures that our field guys took. 2 years ago, we also started utilizing virtual reality, or VR. The VR headset allows you to view and walk through the project virtually, and all of the clients that have tried it have been blown away by it. We love helping clients with unique projects, and we'd be thrilled to discuss your next project with you.
If you're thinking about doing a project soon, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us by phone or go on our website, quarryviewbuildinggroup.com. Thank you and have a great day.
Welcome to the Maryland 5-Star Virtual Dressage presentation. My name is Gretchen Butts, and I am joined
by Helen Brettle. I am a British judge, but I do live in this country. And we are going to look at the dressage phase of the Maryland 5-Star.
And as mentioned, my name is Gretchen. I am a Marylander, tried and true, and have been associated with Fair Hill for a very long period of time, having ridden there as a teenager, and further have, at this particular level, have both competed, volunteered, officiated, and it's one of my favorite places in the state. And I don't think anyone will be disappointed when you see things for yourself next October.
So day one is all about dressage, which is really about the training of the horse and how the rider influences the horse in the way he goes and his obedience and quality of his gaits. And so the dressage test is laid down. It is a specific pattern, and that pattern has to be followed by each competitor.
And the competitors do know in advance what dressage test they're doing, and they must perform this according to, as Helen said, a prescribed number of movements. In the particular test that we're looking at, which is 5-Star Test A, there are a total of 24 movements and then one additional movement given at the end as far as a collective impression of the test, particularly the harmony, the partnership of the horse and rider. The dressage ring itself is 20 by 60 meters. It is rectangular. It has certain, specific actually, letters placed around the outside of the ring, again at specific distances. So the riders and the riders know this because some of the movements they have to do require accuracy, proper geometry in their performance, which is part of what they're scored on. You will see 3 judges in October who will be placed at different locations around the ring, each of them watching the horse and rider do the same test, but getting a very different and unique sense of how that looks, what they are actually seeing. And we're talking, I mentioned 25 movements. All of these are completed within a 5-minute period. So a lot of the movements happen rather quickly. And I think it's tough for judges they have to have a clear idea of what they expect to see, according to the level and the standard, both within the scale of training that they use as their roadmap, if you will, in developing, it's what horses and riders use as well in their development and training, and eventually in their performance.
And each horse is different. Each horse has different athletic ability. Some are out-and-out jumpers and not particularly good in the dressage ring. But it's up to the rider to get the best out of each horse, to please us, and they hopefully know what we're looking for.
Yes.
So when we see this test, we'll see what we are actually looking for in a test.
But you never know until you actually go around the ring and then you hear the signal device to begin the test and you enter at A, and then things start and you just, hope you've got your best day that you're bringing to the ring on that particular one. Our test rider is Lainey Ashker, riding her horse Atlas, and she will be performing for us the FEI Eventing CCI 5-Star Dressage Test B.
These tests are all new this year to the riders and to the judges. They rotate every 2 or 3 years, is it? 3 years? So that nobody gets bored with them and the horses don't get to know them too well.
Which can happen.
Yes, absolutely. So this COVID year, these tests haven't been ridden much at all.
No, they haven't. It's been a very, very unique competition year at all levels. So we're
Okay.
going to start with,
Enter at collected canter in these upper level tests. They tend to come in and canter, which is not easy to do on a straight. To remain straight in the canter, you tend to see them a little crooked. So we want to see how straight she is. They then have to halt at I, which is a marker on the center line, and halt and salute the judges before proceeding at trot. And here she comes in a very collected canter, but it's very straight. And not 100% straight in the halt, because
No.
we can see 3 legs instead of 2.
2. Yes, we would like to see more of a railroad track effect. Just 2, what we call 2 tracks, the same side, front and hind leg being in line. We also, the halt, we see the halt at the beginning and in this test at the end as well. The halt is meant to be a test of immobility, of being settled, if you will, attentive, and not anxious, not distracted, just, very much attuned.
At attention.
Yes, to the rider. I thought the halt was a bit on the brief side, but she did halt, and she did salute, and is now continuing forward.
And I think to note here that the horse is in a double bridle, which in eventing we don't see certainly until the top level of eventing. You see it in dressage, pure dressage, much more,
Yes.
but not so much in eventing.
So that completes our first movement. She has entered, she has halted, she has resumed, going from a canter halt now to a collected trot, and has tracked to the right.
And the next movement will be a medium trot across the diagonal, a medium trot which is not fully extended but should show a certain amount of ground cover, thrust and reach.
Lift, reach,
Yeah.
yes, or round off the ground sort of feeling. And here the transitions are, the transition being the change from collected to the development and execution of the medium. And then as she approaches the corner letter there, she will then transition back to the collected trot. We want to see that happen, but that is part of the total mark here that the judges are considering.
And when you say transition back, we're looking at the horse's balance at 5-star being much more in an uphill balance. We see horses at the lower levels who are a little on their forehands. They haven't yet learnt to use their hind leg to
really
weight
carry
bear.
themselves,
Yeah.
yes.
And so now we're looking for a much more uphill stance and way of going with more freedom of the shoulders.
More lightness.
Yeah.
Just again, the horse being in self-carriage should, as the term says, more carry themselves and not dependent on the rider to help hold them up, if you will, which often happens at the lower levels. And as the horses are developing from being very inexperienced, unskilled, if you will, athletes into the type of athlete that Lainey is showing us here, who is almost not that you ever stop developing, learning, improving, but, a horse that is very, very confirmed at this particular level. What was the medium?
I think it's at least a 7.
Yeah.
Could well go to a 7.5. Unfortunately, we're seeing the view that we're going to see when we're sitting at sea. Sometimes you feel as you get older, you'd like to, have a magnifying glass to see it, but we only get one shot.
Yes.
And the overall impression was very consistent and level and with good rhythm, and I thought a fair amount of lift and
Yes.
and
And
push.
it was fairly
So I
good.
think it could be a 7.5.
Yeah, 7 or 7.5.
Yeah.
I would like to have seen, I thought it was seamless in the sense of like watching the top line, watching the balance, watching the connection. I thought that was fairly consistent. I would like to have seen a bit more of a bolder kind of
But
execution.
here
if
we
you
also
will.
have to put the transitions in, and
Yep.
she has to go all the way to F before the mark can be given. Sometimes we give it early and regret it when something
Yes.
happens. But here, the meat of it was your medium
Yep.
trot, and the collected trot around the end is more of a modifier if something goes wrong. So let's watch her through that. And then she's going to perform a half pass to the left.
Yes, movement 3.
Yeah. So that trot came back to a nice collected
Yes,
trot.
it did.
And here the half pass, again the horse is looking the way he's going and has a good attitude with a clear bend to the left, with the quarters not trailing, but not also leading the way,
Correct.
which sometimes can happen.
The forehand always should be slightly in advance.
So I thought again, it's very pleasant.
Yes, I agree.
I think this would be my comment so far. It's pleasant, but it doesn't blow me away.
And as judges, we look at the directives, and for half pass, we should be thinking about the regularity, the quality of the trot, the, I might need my glasses, the
Collection and balance.
And balance.
Flexion, bend, fluency, crossing of legs.
Yes.
There's a lot
Just
goes on.
How supple, how laterally supple the horse is as an athlete, as well as being obedient to the aids.
And I think when we're talking about marks sort of above 8, it has to have the wow factor. You
Or
have
the
to say,
brilliance that
wow,
we're- yes.
yeah, that wow, and you can't take your eyes off it. The horse is extremely well trained and is very obedient and supple, can
yes.
be an 8, but above that
Consistent.
you have to say wow.
Yes. And we do have 9 as a very good and 10 as an excellent.
Yep.
So, you really do have to consider the range of scale, if you will, when you are
And try and use
determining.
it.
Yeah, try and use it, yep. But remembering, just as the riders do, where each movement starts and stops and what's contained within it.
And I think also at this point to say that you have the 3 judges, and at the end of the day, those 3 judges' marks are added together and averaged. So one would hope that we're all seeing the same sort of standard, but sometimes the view will colour that those marks. But so it isn't just one person, it's not that subjective, well it is subjective, but it's not, you have 3
Yes.
opinions which contribute to the mark. So now she's going to do a circle right on 8 meters, which is not all the way to the edge.
No. And again, she's been on left half pass, so she needs to straighten, create right bend prior to her beginning of the circle.
So it's quite a balancing issue.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at this.
So we're
Now
looking
my
for-
first impression is that this horse is rather long,
Yes.
and he came against the bridle a little bit on that turn. He's a long horse to get around 8 meters, and he's not really carrying enough
Himself,
weight
yeah.
behind. So that to me would perhaps bring it down to a 6.5.
Yeah.
He just eventually used her as his balancing.
I thought he stayed fairly straight on the circle as far as the hind legs following in the track, if you will, your imaginary railroad track of the front, and consistent in the push. But again, it was, we'd like to see, as Helen was referring to, more self-carriage. Better balance. better
Not so much
self-carriage.
reliance on the rider's hand to
Yep.
hold them together.
Yep.
So here he comes up in the shoulder in right, and here he needs to be on, you need to be able to see 3 tracks.
Which is one thing from this view we can see.
And your side view won't see it so well, they'll see a different aspect of it. But we should see the right front leg on one track, the left front and the right hind on the middle track, and the left hind on the right as we look at it track. So we need to see that consistently up this imaginary line, because there is no line specific. And that's pretty good.
Yes.
From horse point of view, it's pretty good. He lost his balance a little at the end. But that's difficult. It's a very short shoulder in before you straighten and then turn the
And
opposite
turn
way.
the opposite way. So we're really asking for the horse, to be ambidextrous, to be very supple in his change of direction with very little room to be able to do it and to do it properly and correctly, from a training and development standpoint.
But I thought that shoulder in was quite nice.
Yeah.
And I would be at the 7+ or
Yes.
7, 7 plus.
7.75. Yep. and consistent. I mean, it was, again,
Slight loss of balance at the end.
but pleasant enough, and again, harmonious. You know, that's one thing that we as judges look for. We look for the synchrony, if you will, between horse and rider. You know, their acceptance of each other as athletes and how well they work as a partnership, because that certainly plays into the total impression that one has movement per movement, but also throughout the entire tapestry.
So now she's going to do an extended trot across the diagonal, which is a bigger trot than the first one we saw. It's the maximum trot that we asked for. And here we get a mark for the transition going in and at the other end of it. So we have to look at that as well. And then the actual extension. And this horse could, for me, still be more uphill.
Yes.
He trails his quarters a little bit. I'd really like to see a lot more push and reach in front.
And almost croup high at times.
Yeah,
Where we're seeing the hind end becomes more apparent to us than, you know, this sense of being uphill. And again, the frame and the stride both lengthening. You know, we want the tempo to stay the same. We don't want the horse to hurry, lose his balance, etc. But we want the same 1, 2, 1, 2, but just in a longer 1, 2, 1, 2 type.
And the tempo was good here, but
Yes.
I just felt for what we're looking for, it didn't have the right balance. And so I probably would be going down a little bit on that. I mean, would you go lower than a 7, or would you?
I'd be in the 6-5 for
Yeah, I
this
think
for
I might be
extended.
too.
You know, I mean, that is the ultimate ground cover that we expect to see at the trot. And, you know, here you do have to, if you will, a little bit coil the spring, you know, the horse's frame, and then
And that's what she did.
develop it, you know, to cover ground as you go across. So,
And I didn't feel there was much coiling at H.
no,
So
there
the
wasn't.
transition would have a similar sort of mark.
Yes.
It didn't really set the horse up for success in a way.
And we look at the definition of those transitions because they are critical to the movement, and then the movement that is.
It says engagement of the hind legs into extended trot and return to collected trot. And engagement of the hind legs is exactly what we want. We're to scoop the hind leg underneath the horse to carry more weight.
Yes.
So.
And not let the horse just get flat and just, you know, a bit, not quite on the forehand, not quite on the hind end, you know, but not where we expect them to be, especially at this level, which is the pinnacle level of our eventing pyramid.
So now he's, we can't see the transition because we stopped it sort of in the middle, but again, unless she makes a really good transition, we'll see the collected trot, which is, you know, she definitely came back.
Yes.
I would hesitate to say she perhaps came up too much.
Right.
But now we have the half pass right, so we do everything as a mirror image,
Right.
and see whether the horse is ambidextrous and can go both ways.
And this is movement 8 out of our 25 that we will see.
So we need to be able to see the crossing of both the hind and the front legs, which I think we can see there, but not a lot of bend.
No, not a lot of bend at all. And that is something that we would note in our comment. You know, the judges, they score, they you know, again, based on the scale and what is seen, they determine a numerical value for each movement, again, movement start to finish, and then should add, typically do add a brief written comment. And ideally that written comment would give some indication to the rider as far as, say, for example, if the score was a 7, why it wasn't an 8. You know, in other words, what it could be a consistent rhythm, now add more uphill carriage. You know, something like that, just so the riders know they've got a bit of a
Guide for the next time.
yeah, you know, kind of why it wasn't an 8 or a higher mark. And
So we both agree, I think, that the left half pass was better than the right half pass.
And I know both of us would comment here, you know, bend unclear or bend needs more definition, something like that. Because again, as Helen commented early on, we only can comment and judge on what we actually see. And that is something that from this particular location you can see.
It was more of a leg yield than a half pass.
Almost.
All right, now we have the circle left, 8 meters.
So we're accurate here.
Yeah, I like that circle. I thought that his hind leg really came underneath him a little more this
So
way.
better impulsion, better push from the
Yep.
hind end.
Yeah.
We always are attentive to what the hind end is doing, especially as we go up through the levels. Is it actively pushing the horse forward rather than the front end pulling the horse forward?
Mm-hmm. And back to the shoulder in, coming up the center line. The center line. Have we got the same sort of angle as we had the last time?
Right, those
The
three
last
tracks
one's
that we're looking for. But I think we were happy with that.
Yeah, no, we were. Yeah.
And feeling that the quality there was certainly better than the one we saw on the other ring.
And this time she finished it off a lot better.
Yes.
There wasn't the wobble, and I
Yes.
thought the actual shoulder in was correct.
Yes.
And then the balance was very carefully managed this time, and she did a very good job of having the horse upright before the turn the opposite way, because it's a very, very difficult thing now.
Yeah. But to straighten, rebalance
Yeah.
before changing the mechanics of what the next move was requiring.
And more to the point here, she's also got to do a transition to walk,
Yes.
which it throws a whole heap of
whole
things at
different,
it.
a whole different,
So I thought that was very well written and very well managed. So kudos to her. And I think that shoulder in left got a better mark than
Yes,
the
for sure.
So
And now we've transitioned to walk. This is movement.
this is movement 11. So all it says is track right, transition to
transition.
medium walk, and only to M. So you get a whole 10 marks for these 11 steps or something. So the thing we're looking for in a walk, the transition
medium
of
walk.
yes, the transition obviously is important, that the horse goes smoothly forwards and through to the lower pace, if you like. But the walk is a 4-beat pace, and it has to have 4 distinct beats. Equal beats, and relaxation is a big thing in
Yes,
these
at the
event
top
horses,
line, yes.
because event horses are fit to run across country on
Yes.
day 2, and some of them don't really want the constraint of the
Right,
dressage arena.
right. They
The
become-
walk is where you see it.
Yes, it is often the most challenging gait of the three, is to keep the horse, calm, relaxed, obedient, using the top line properly, to cover the ground.
One of the most common comments, I think, in eventing walks is some tension today.
Yes.
And we're being kind, because this horse, some tension today, it probably means that most times it's a little tense. But this horse has got certainly the first bit of walk that we saw was a nice walk. He's a very relaxed horse.
Yeah. And the medium, it is to be, it's defined as being active, purposeful, a bit marching, if you will, not a casual, slumberous walk. And he was, could he have been a bit more, of course. But, did he fulfill the criteria? Yes.
It's a very short space to fulfill it.
It is, and that's it. And as Helen pointed out, between as you can see, the letter C marker here on the right of the screen, and then where M is, we're talking not very much room, and still enough in that movement to properly show us.
So now from M to E across the short diagonal, they have to show an extended walk, which means a lengthening of stride, a lengthening of the top line, the neck, stretch to the bridle, and really pushing from behind, but really over the top of his back.
Yes.
And this horse has got a good walk, but I felt that he didn't really push over his top line.
No. More swing, more reach, and more ground cover produced from, the entire body.
But the walk itself was correct.
Yeah, it was regular.
Yeah.
It was rhythmical. But yes, another measure that we look for is what we call overtrack. Again, how much is he reaching forward with the hind leg to exceed the track of the front leg that you can see, especially in footing like this. It's quite easy to.
It's one of the first things you look for in the walk, is to see how much overstep they've got.
And he really didn't. He was pretty much marginally, into the track created by the
So
front.
he wouldn't have, really good marks for his walk, but
No.
they'd still be hovering on the 7, maybe, or
I'd probably
6'5" for the extended,
6'5",
maybe.
Yeah, for the extension. I
maybe
would wanna see
medium would
more.
be fine. Yeah.
And he did. He it wasn't that he was frozen in his top line or tense, You know, we just wanted to see all
More
of
of
the
an
body
athlete.
connect
Yeah.
and yes, show us a bit more of a difference.
So now he has to go back to the medium walk, and this is, he goes across the other part of the diagonal, and this is where the event horses really struggle. Because usually, and luckily not in this test, but usually they have to go into canter after this, and they're
they
so
anticipate
excited to
that.
do this.
Yes, and the riders know it's coming too, and it can be challenging for both horse and rider, both athletes, to stay relaxed. And
But this horse, you know, his walks are much the same.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of difference.
no, not between the medium and the extension.
But it's not collected, it's only medium.
Yep.
So I think that medium walk was, you know, perfectly okay.
Yeah.
It was still only at the 7 top mark. I
Yeah,
would
top
think.
mark, yes, 6.5.
So then when he gets to A, he has to halt from the walk, which should be nice. He should come to a nice, balanced, square halt. Somewhere over the letter A. And that, from what we can see, is pretty jolly square.
Yes, I mean, we're looking, I see 2 tracks.
And I see A underneath his tummy, so
Yes.
that is pretty good.
Yes. His pole is up, the pole being the area between the ears, and that should always be the highest point of the horse when he's working. And hind legs are pretty much well balanced and even
Now,
under.
you know, from here, very often, if they haven't got all their weight totally on a hind leg, it's so difficult to see. So you give the benefit of the doubt to the rider, to the horse. It's a long way from, it's 60 meters, probably 65 from where we're standing. And he, to me, has come into a balanced halt. He is an 8 or more
Yes,
on
for
that.
sure.
And depending, you know, if we saw the whole thing,
Yeah.
if it was a good,
Yeah.
solid 3
I would
seconds.
easily be at the 8.5 or 9 with
Yes,
this.
if it's a good 3 seconds, he's completely relaxed, he's not anticipating, he then goes up.
Yes,
But
very
from
subtle
what we
thing.
see here, it's
Certainly
a very
a nice
halt.
picture that we see, isn't
Yeah.
it, from this
Yeah.
this perspective. And the halt, and that's all this movement
Just the
does,
halt.
is just the quality and the execution of the halt.
But it's an active halt. It's
Yeah.
one which is still ready to do the
Yes,
next thing.
I mean, he could go forward, he could go backwards. It's not uncommon to see a rein back where the horse is asked to go backwards.
and that's what we're going to do.
So
is
we'll just see what he does.
rein back 5 steps. And
And-
they're very specific. They don't
Yes.
say 4 to 5, they
No.
say 5. So the horse should walk backward. He actually goes back with diagonal pairs of legs. So he's not exactly walking backwards. Goes back diagonally, clear steps. With
Even steps.
5 steps.
And then,
Doesn't complete the 6, and then straight forward into canter right.
Yeah. So
So there's a lot in that.
there is.
And he has to accept it with no resistance. So let's have a look.
1,
2, 3, 4, 5. So there was so much to like about that,
Yeah.
in that he was a little slow to develop it.
Steps were not fully even,
And they weren't very big,
right?
but he did the 5, and then he went straight into a very nice canter. So you have to really perhaps bring him down a little bit on the reluctance at
Right.
the beginning.
The connection as well,
Yeah.
as far as the execution of the canter
And this is where, you know, the essence of the movement is going backwards. The essence is not the canter afterwards, but that has to give him a plus.
that's in this case one of the modifiers.
And again, with event horses, they want to go forwards.
Yeah.
And they tend to want to go forwards fast. So going backwards is not on their radar very often, and we often see a problem where they just don't want to go backwards at all. And it does happen. That's where your lower marks come into action. But this was quite decent.
Yeah, it was certainly acceptable, beyond acceptable.
And I think a 6.5 or a 7
Yeah,
again
yeah.
on that would be
Yeah.
perfectly
Yep.
good.
Yeah, I think if you felt, you could easily go to either and justify either.
So now we're into the canter part of the test. And
And we're on what movement now?
we're on movement 16.
out of 25.
And he goes from K to S most of the way up the long side in a medium canter. Now medium is as it says, it's you know, the first, the most collected canter is called collected canter. Then we have a working canter. Then we have medium canter, and the very longest canter you get is extended canter.
These are the
Here we
pieces
have a
within the
medium So we want to see some push and some
We
lengthening,
want to see
and
thrust,
covering
lift,
ground.
cover ground. And from this angle, again, we see and judge what we see.
I didn't see a lot there, did you?
I didn't see much at all,
No.
really. So to me,
Be a little
needing a lot more
disappointed.
definition in this, I thought it was a very, a conservative might even be too strong a word. I didn't
Yeah.
see much difference.
A lot of the times we would say modest.
Yes,
Because
quite
it-
modest or vague.
Yeah, it didn't really give us
It
any.
didn't wow us for sure.
Well, it didn't give us much clue that if we were watching this
No.
test without this sheet in
Yes,
front of
with-
us, what they were actually
yeah,
doing.
I mean, it still looks like it kind of stayed
Yeah.
in the collected more than it did the medium.
So now she goes in the same mark. SR is a half circle riding collected canter. So we need to see a difference between the medium and the collected, and really now that the movement has finished, and we really don't see the difference.
No.
So, yes, she's in canter. Yes, it's got a good rhythm and everything, but it's not doing a lot for us.
No, I mean, you'd be hard to even say that this was fairly good.
I would be on a sort of 6 or a
Yeah,
6.5 for
6.5,
this,
yeah.
because it really isn't it's not giving us what
It's
we're
not-
asking for.
fulfilling the criteria.
In the next movement, they're going to collect and make a flying change. So they're going to swap leads on the aids. So this extended canter, a lot of people don't really go for it because they know what's coming at the end.
They anticipate the change and sacrifice the quality of the extension.
They know their horses. They know
Yes,
what their horses' weaknesses and strengths are.
And yes, and that's a very good point, because some riders are purposely willing to sacrifice one movement for the next, rather than get, two
Mediocre marks.
mediocre marks in a row. Let's sacrifice one in the hopes of gaining a bit the difference in the other. So now we are on movement 17, which is the
Flying change.
flying change
Across the center line.
Across the center line, going from letter V, as you can see on the left, to letter V. V is in Victor. So we're going to watch this, and again, looking for does the change occur, and how correct it is, and again, how the quality of the canter is as well.
And a flying change is where they change from one lead to the next lead. But they have to do it with the front and the back equally changing, because very often we see them change in front and not behind, or a little later behind. So on this one, it says across the center line. I thought it was a little late
It
to
was
the
late,
aid.
yeah.
It did happen, but
Yeah.
it was a little late, and it was clean, but it was a little laboured.
Yeah, it was flat. Lacking a bit of jump, kind of lightness to the canter. And again, I would agree, labored is a good term. Slightly late as far as the timing, and labored in the execution.
So although, we might say a clean change deserves a 7, I don't think she was
No.
at the 7, because
No.
there were too many other things
Yeah.
wrong. Now, if you were sitting somewhere else, you might have seen whether she was straight. Sometimes they swing from one
Right.
side to the other. From here, we really saw whether she was clean and whether the horse stayed in the contact.
Yes. And did she go from R to B? How precise she was in
Yeah.
the execution of the movement.
Yeah. So I think that would be more of a 6, don't
Yeah.
you? Okay.
I would agree.
So now we're going to the half pass left from F to the quarter line between I and S. So this is a very nebulous place somewhere over there.
Where
But
they
it's
land.
not all the way, and they're going to look for another flying change. But we're looking first of all for the half pass, which is getting a little laboured. Not too much push, and it's really
No,
not quick
lose-
off the ground.
No, losing rhythm a bit prior to the change.
And then the change, when it happened, was very slick.
Yeah, it was.
And she really did a very nice, balanced change.
It was
It's
straight.
really-
It was on the 8s.
The difficulty in this movement is you're coming across sideways, you've got to keep the balance. And then when you get to the quarter line, you've got to straighten your horse, balance the horse, and make the change.
Yes.
That's
Keeping the change straight on the aids, and again,
and that is a lot.
Yeah, maintaining the quality of the canter that the judges are looking for.
So I thought, although the half pass was a little laboured and really,
And just clarify for me, Helen, and for our viewers, the half pass and the flying change are the same movement, or are they?
80. No, they're different movement. You've got the half pass to the quarter line,
Right.
then the change.
Right. So we would be, two different thoughts, two different scores. You know, one for the half pass and one for the change. Definitely, we were happier with the change than we were with the half pass.
And the change was better than that first one.
It was.
I would give that. I mean, I was happy with that change. I mean, to me, it could almost be a 7.5.
Yeah.
The canter
I
improved
was
too.
between the 7 and 7.5 as well.
And I think I would have rewarded that, but I
Yes.
would have come down
On
for the
the
half
half
pass
pass,
because
yeah.
I really didn't like that much.
No.
There was very little side, very
Yes.
little reach, and it almost stopped going.
Yes,
forward.
and a lot. You know, I'd be the 6.65 there. I mean, did he perform it? Yes. You know, was it the quality that we're looking for and expecting? Not quite. And there was a lot of inconsistency in the connection, you know, almost bobbing, if you will, you know, as instead of that smooth flow, kind of seamless from one stride to the next.
And now what we might do is we'll run this one again through the two movements because they run together quite
they
well.
do.
So here we've got the half pass, and again the quarters are trailing a little
Yeah,
bit.
and look, do we see a bend?
No.
No, we really don't see a bend.
But we're coming to the quarter line, then we want them to be straight, and then the change. And yes, I mean the engagement is a bit of a problem here, isn't
And
it?
the connection.
It really wasn't pushing through to the connection in the half pass. So again, the half pass is his downfall in this particular little tour. But
I mean, a lot was to me. There was more incorrect than things to like.
than the previous one too.
Yes.
But the actual change was seamless. And from the back, you know, it's very difficult to see a change from the back
Yeah.
because you're looking at the hind legs and you're
Yes.
hoping.
And looking for all four legs and hoping you don't blink at the wrong time because then you're in trouble.
You have one shot at it.
Yes.
And the changes are rather a contentious part of this
Yeah.
level
And
of
again,
dressage.
this is a separate score as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
same
for the
thing.
half pass, so just as it was on the other.
So-
And the tests are often like that. They're often mirrored, which is good for the judging because we have a sense, you know, it's important that as judges we know we need to watch what's going on here. We can't be looking down. It's like, oh gosh, what's next? You know, we really, and Helen and I are both very good as far as memorizing the test and we can just recite it almost as there. But this is the first time we've done this test. So we're a little new at the game as well.
So we're seeing this for the first time as we would on the day.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I saw
Brand
that-
spanking new.
I saw that as a clean change. One would hope that the other two judges are going to see them the same.
Yeah.
There is a mechanism nowadays whereby we can check this because
At this level.
sometimes you do blink at the wrong moment, and so we are allowed to confer as to whether those changes were clean.
Yes.
If
If there is a specific point spread between the three judges, then yes, they actually use video evidence, and then do have permission to modify
Adjust.
a score, adjust, just so again we're looking for consistency and fairness. Otherwise, the numbers you get are the numbers you get.
yeah, there's no
There
conferring
there
otherwise.
is no rewind. There is no, oh well, maybe I'll change that.
And no conferring.
No. Three independent views.
But so she, as far as we were concerned, she did two clean changes there. And for the difficulty of the movement, I thought the changes were fine. It was the half pass that brought it down.
Correct.
So now she's going to show us, she showed us the medium canter before. Now it's going to be an extended canter.
Okay.
So we're hoping to see a lot more this time.
And we had, in the same way the movement is extension and then a separate flying change score, or do we have the flying change?
No,
So we just have the extension.
No, we just got the extension.
Okay, and we're going across the full diagonal?
No, we're going up the long side.
Oh, long side.
F to M.
Okay.
All the way.
Transition, separate score or same score?
No, same score.
Okay. So we're looking for the beginning, the essence, and the end.
So we want to see a real
Starting
good
now.
push. And bearing in mind that everything on television looks more minimized, as it were.
Yeah.
I would have been happy with that as a medium.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking,
but not as an extended.
Right,
so
exactly.
Yes, it was different.
Did she show a difference? Yes.
Yes.
Did she meet the criteria of extension? In our opinion, no. To us, it was more a proper medium being executed. Again, according to the definition and the criteria of what a medium canter is versus the extension.
But the other problem with the lengthened canter of any sort, whether it's medium or extended, is that the horse is wedge-shaped. And so he can bring his quarters in from the side to protect them a little bit if you're not almost producing a shoulder four. And she was very careful with that. The horse was straight. And then when they come back at M from a really good extended canter, if they lose their balance, very often they'll just change behind.
Yeah.
So again, the judge has to be really quick to see that.
You can't be looking down.
Because that's one of the places that it can happen. Now, as we say, it wasn't enough in our opinion, but what she did was okay. It just wasn't enough
She
for
showed
the
us a
extended.
canter and she showed us a transition. Just not enough to really get high marks for defining a proper extension. And again, going to the directives, they say, just so
transition
our
into
audience
extended,
knows,
rhythm, length of stride and frame, straightness, transition to collected.
Yeah.
But it's really the ground cover that's different.
Yes. And it's not a gallop because the tempo, the mechanics are all weighted into how we score things. But you really want to see the horse's frame and stride change again as he covers more ground.
Now we're coming to the movement that a lot of them forget. The circle left 20 meters, allowing the horse to stretch forward and down. Now, the reason for this is to show the correct training of the horse. The fact that he's willing to take the contact down, follow the contact down, and maintain the same balance. And to see whether the horse has really been working over his back and he's quite tired and he needs to stretch to give himself a little break.
Seeking like the end of the rein, where the bridle is, where the bit is.
And I thought that this horse, again, it wasn't a wow.
No, I mean, did he show us some difference?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
But I would want to see more. I'd like to see more down stretch where he's really
forward down and really more stretching, if you will, the top line and seeking
and this
the contact, the end of the contact.
Where we freeze framed it here is a little downward. It's that's where he is when he's coming back. He needs to be able to really push under and sit up. But a lot of people forget this movement because it's not mirror imaged. It just sort of sticks into the middle of the test somewhere. But after this, they've got to really sort themselves out because they come across from S to P and do a flying change across the center line again. So we were in collected canter again, across the center line. And actually, if that was straight, which I'm assuming it was very pleasant. It was correct. It was clean. They both ends worked together. It wasn't desperately expressive or uphill, but it was pleasant.
Yes.
So, in my view, sometimes pleasant is a 7.
Yep. I mean,
he has correct gaits. Everything's nice and.
Still connection, still impulsion. I mean, there are always ways that you can not criticize, but in other words, as you assess, you're thinking about again, as we talked before, the pyramid of training scale, rhythm, regularity, suppleness, contact, impulsion, straightness, and then self collection. And kind of where, and even at the very lowest levels, that's kind of the what we have in the back of our mind as we're assessing things. And each level, there are different expectations, based on training and development. And
if you give a 7 through the whole test, that translates to 70%, and will end up as a penalty mark of 30 in our scoring system. Now 30 used to stand you in good stead, and unfortunately now it doesn't. Now you have to be down, in fact, in the low 20s. It seems that people's grasp of dressage has become so good in the
Become much
eventing world
better at
that-
doing it properly
that now we're looking at the low 20s
Yes.
in order to be on
on the competitive side.
competitive end going
Yes.
into cross country.
And you really need to be anymore. You know, it's not unusual to see that you're, not always, but it's not unusual either to see that your winner, you know, also did very well in all three phases, starting with the dressage phase.
So now her final swan song is down the centre line, L, halt, salute. So it's a very short trip down the centre line, and sadly for Laney, he lost his balance a little bit
Yes.
into the halt and
Kind of
swung his
fell
quarters.
Fell into the halt and
So, you know, her mark
Yeah.
effectively goes down a little bit. I mean, he ends up quiet. This horse was very relaxed through his test.
very willing, you know.
Very willing.
Yeah,
He did
a
most
willing
things
partner.
correctly. Then the last mark that we have before we sign off on the sheet is the harmony of athlete and horse, a confident partnership created by adhering to the scale of training. And it's always difficult with this mark. We've all, I think, decided to give it as a harmony mark. Are the horse and rider working as a team?
right.
And I
And
think
harmony, it's the principle of dressage training. You know, the harmonious development of horse and rider.
and this horse, I thought he had a nice harmonious thing with he might not be quite at the level we're asking,
Right.
but that's okay. He's still working nicely and in tune with his rider.
And-
So,
yeah.
you know, I think he would be a 7 or a 7.5 for me
Yeah.
for the harmony,
Yeah.
because it was good.
And a lot of times at this, not just at this level, but at any level, you'll see a test that might be more correctly written as far as fulfilling the criteria, but without this sense of harmony. You know, there's usually not quite the suppleness, not quite the mental and physical relaxation that, you know, allows the test to flow
Certain amount of
seamlessly.
angst.
Yeah, you know, but there's just this underlying angst where the horse is, like here, I thought this horse was quite willing, you know, and happy to do whatever Laney asked him to do. You know, did he do it exceptionally well each time? No, but you know, there was some effort on his part to try. And again, you know, we can only second guess how much Laney actually asked him, like for the mediums, you know, maybe she kept things conservative for a certain reason. Who knows? You know, but that's not for us to even guess. You know, we can only judge and score what we see, you know, during the competition. So this concludes our virtual dressage phase with test rider Laney Ashker. And we hope that this will give you an informative educational preview of what to expect to see next year in October 2021 at our 5-star event at Fair Hill.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Yeah.